Welcome to the Snowbird Investor Way, where we explore what it takes to create your dream cross-border lifestyle, living and investing amongst the sun, sand, and palm trees of Florida, even if you're not a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. I'm your host, Coach Roel. So Martin Persaud, my friend, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be here on the Snowbird Investor Way podcast. Just as a quick little review, you have been a real estate agent in the GTA for over 15 years now, which is awesome. You service people anywhere from Niagara Falls all the way to around the Bend to Ajax. You have got investment properties in Ontario, as well as a new investment property down here near my neighborhood around Kissimmee, Florida. Well, first question I want to ask of you is, why Florida for you? What's first comes to mind? What do you love most about traveling to Florida?
To be honest, it's the palm trees, the warmth. I'm from I was born in Canada, but my parents are from South America, so I have that night to look at fruit trees all year round and palm trees and not have to wear shovel snow.
Nice. What part of South America?
Guyana.
Guyana. Oh, okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I grew up with so many Guyanese and Caribbean and South Americans in Scarborough in the 80s.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. What's your favorite place? You were telling me a little bit earlier. Like, how do you plan out your visits to Florida?
So our hub has always been Orlando. The kids are young. They like the parks, and we stay. It's kind of central, and then from there, we drive throughout the state of Florida. We've driven down to the Keys, up to Fort Myers, Clearwater, Miami, all around. The kids love driving. The wife loves driving. They don't mind sitting in a car for a couple hours to see what Florida has, as opposed to just Universal or Disneyland.
Nice. And how old are your kids now? Give me some context.
Daughter's 16 and son is 18. They pretty much grew up going out to Florida with us.
Nice. So how long would you say you've been doing these family trips down to Florida?
Prior to getting married with my parents, it was the same thing. I'm 48, so 45 years we've been Florida, our second home, pretty much.
Uh-huh. And then, so you chose Orlando as the hub because of the kids?
Yes. It's something, in the evenings, what do we do? And they always like to go down to Disney Springs to hang out there in the evenings. They always love that, just to walk around, see the nightlife or so-called, kids' nightlife. And
tell me a little bit about Disney Springs. Not a lot of people know about it. Actually, when I came down 5-6 years ago, when we relocated from Toronto, we didn't know about Disney Springs. We heard about it from a local. So this is great. This is a great tip that you can give other Canadians who think, oh, you got to just pay like an arm and a leg to get into Disney World. Well, there's Disney Springs. And what do you like about that?
Sure. So prior to Disney Springs, it was called Downtown Disney. And we about 7-8 years ago, someone, I think one of the places we were staying at mentioned, hey, take the kids down here, take a look at it, and said, yeah, let's go, because you never heard of it. And I said, let's go see what it looks like. And we were like, wow, this is, you walk around, there's Starbucks, there's shops, and it's free. Yeah, free parking, free entrance, and it's grown quite a bit since 5-6 years ago. So it's pretty massive, and you can spend 3-4 hours no problem, just walking around and enjoying the shops and the restaurants that they have there as well.
Mm-hmm. And so give me an idea, how are you able to come down? I think you mentioned before we hit record, like you would come down like sometimes 3-4 times a year. How is it that you have that time flexibility and all that? That's a big mystery that I know a lot of our listeners would love to know about.
So it's huge. With being a real estate agent, I have that flexibility to not have to be physically at an office. I can do I work anywhere, and that it's happened numerous times. I'll be in Florida, have to do a deal down there. It allows my flexibility. The kids are small. they're not they don't have jobs. The wife is pretty flexible on her time, so it works. It works very well. Even if we came once a year, it's more of, we know the Florida area so well. We know where to go as opposed to sitting in one spot and just
Mm-hmm.
bored after that. After the third day, you're kind of bored doing the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm. And what would be like a typical length of a visit when you'd come down?
Probably about 5 or 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
We came back in January for a couple. We went for about 4 days. We're going back. We're going back to your area back in a couple of days next week for another 4 or 5 days, just to get
Nice.
away. I have that flexibility with my profession, so it works. It works well.
Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing too. Is your wife is able to have some flexibility? Does she work remotely, or is it kind of baked into her occupation?
It's baked into her operation. She works for the Niagara District School Board, so she has a little pretty much good flexibility there on that side of things. But again,
Great. And then, sorry,
I've
go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry. I've traveled the Florida by myself, looking for investment properties. There's one of those things where you got to travel down. You don't have to not deal with, but it's nice to focus on what your primary goal is
Mm-hmm.
down there.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned too that you have a few investment properties both in Ontario as well
Yes.
as recently down here in Florida. What's you What was your deciding factor for getting an investment property after having some in Canada? Why expand to Florida for yourself?
It's the biggest thing is price point. Back in the day when I started doing investment up here, it was you can get something $3,000-4,000. Nowadays, you're not getting anything that number, and when you look at ROIs and returns and flippability, it's not up here
Mm-hmm.
anymore. When you start looking at the Kissimmee, Orlando, Pompano Beach area, their price point is very attractive, even with the exchange rate. And we figured out,
Mm-hmm.
for our first investment, we figured out we kind of looked at numbers and where do people want to go. Everyone wants to go to Orlando. They want to go to the parks. They want to stay within, close to the airport. So we said, our first foray into investment in Florida would be something that's what I like to call safe, in a
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
Uh-huh. And then the your properties in Canada,
Yep.
how can you still make those work? Like, how has it changed over the years since you acquired your first one? So you mentioned sometimes you can get 3, 4, 500,000, probably many years ago now in Canada. But how, in your perspective, how could they still work in Canada,
So
investing
now it's
in real estate in Canada?
So now it's more of, can you get that 20% return on reselling it, renovating it, and reselling, or is it more of you got a good price, you do a bit of renovation to it, and then you rent it out, and that's what I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing past little bit, is more on the rental side of things. I guess the price point, a few years ago were pretty good, so it wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
huge move to get the rentals. I get them as rentals.
Mm-hmm. And then describe your what's your property like in Kissimmee? It's not a regular single family home, is it?
No, it's a two-story townhouse in a gated community. Funny
Nice.
thing is, we've gone there, that particular location, probably 3 or 4 times prior, and they never came for sale. It's one of those things you
Uh-huh.
always look, and they never come up. And then, again, it goes back to being an agent. I can do my work remotely. I was actually in Jamaica on a vacation with the family, and this deal came up that I've been looking at before I left. And the agent said, "Hey, if you want it, it's there." So we were doing the deal while I was in Jamaica, coming back to getting it done in Florida. So everything's, it was all, same thing. It was all remote. Did the walkthrough remotely, digital signing remotely, all that fun stuff that I'm used to back home here. I was doing it
Mm-hmm.
as a purchaser or as a client.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What area is it in Kissimmee?
It's
Like the
right by,
proximity to other amenities?
we're probably about 15 minutes from 15, 20 minutes from Orlando Airport. Again, probably the same, about 15, 20 minutes from the parks. So
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty central, right on 192, not too far off of that.
And that's a vacation rental?
Yes.
Excellent. And then, so you started there. When did you acquire that one?
We actually got that last April of 2023. We had actually looked quite before COVID. We had made a decision. Yeah, we're gonna find something in Florida, and then of course, when we came back, we were there, and then we came back from Florida on our trip. We are gonna crunch all the numbers. COVID hit, and I said, I can't. You couldn't travel anymore. You couldn't leave. And I said, I can't manage a property or look at or deal with it when I can't go to the property, regardless if it's a 2-hour flight. We
Mm-hmm.
paused as soon as the restrictions lifted. We were down there, I think, pretty much the next week, making sure of all the areas that we knew would be a good investment.
So how do you put in perspective managing a property from a distance, like acquiring a property, this one being your very first one?
So it was one of the things, I is getting that management company. We interviewed quite a bit to make sure it made sense from a cost perspective, and allowed allowed me to not have to worry about I've got X amount of money invested on a property that I can't physically drive by on a daily basis. So it's more the management companies. There's lots of management companies out in Orlando area. We probably went
Mm-hmm.
through about 5 or 6 to get a solid one that we liked, and would do the legwork for me. While I
Yeah.
physically wasn't.
And so I'm wondering if your Canadian properties, are they all within driving distance?
They are.
And do you manage them yourself?
I do. I have a couple of partners that take care of that for me, but that was one of the biggest mindsets. Is now I no longer
Yeah.
can. If there's an issue, I can't just hop on a car and drive 20 minutes to see what the issue is. It's more of you got Zoom calls, you got phone calls, pictures to try to deal with a foreign property if any issues
Yeah.
come up.
Yeah. Let's delve into that a little bit more, because that's a huge obstacle mentally for
Yeah.
most people saying, yeah, I'd like to be able to again invest. Even people who don't have an investment property, even their first one, they want it in their backyard. But if you live in downtown Toronto, it's just not realistic. The numbers don't work with a 20% down payment, right? So how did you, can you recall how you're able to shift your mindset or get over that fear of literally buying a property in a foreign country and you just can't hop in the car and check up on it on a
It was
whim?
it was one of those things. It was look double checking all the numbers, make sure they work. That's what we said. Hey, if it's in Orlando, close to parks, it has some type of value outside of what I think it has. And it's if we went, I went in the mindset, if it went sideways on our first property, I can resell it. Uh, it's no issues that way. But again,
Mm-hmm.
it was good on the rental side, I can hang on to it, rent it out, which I've been doing pretty steadily since we've had it. But again, it's that mindset of, yeah, everything's at a plus 35% exchange rate. You gotta learn Spanish.
Earning American dollars.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is getting, it's not, it's what if it's $100 now, 135, and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you got that property just April of last year, but you'd been coming down to Florida for quite a while.
Yes.
What changed? Like, what caused you to say, you know what, we should actually buy? Were you thinking about buying a Florida investment
We
property for years, or did it just come
yeah,
up?
for years is one of those things, as again, that mindset. It's not here. It's not in Canada anymore. You can't drive to it now. What if something goes wrong? What if there's a hurricane or something? All the good stuff you hear from Florida. You can't, they won't let you go down and see. But I've looked at I've had it in my mind for quite a while, and get that
Mm-hmm.
investment property. It was just that time where I was honestly tired of renting. I tell my clients out here, why would you pay um, for someone else's mortgage renting? And it's
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. I was doing the exact same thing down there. I was paying someone else's mortgage every time I went down to rent. So there's that
Ah,
mindset
this so it's
of shift.
more of you're looking at it as a cost effectiveness because you come down so often, might as well pay for your own place. Is that accurate?
Exactly. And Miles, I've always liked Florida, regardless of if it wasn't for an investment property, more of a second home, to go down there and
Mm-hmm.
relax when it's minus 30 out here.
Right. Yeah, you're speaking to the choir. Tell me more about that. You were coming down to Orlando even prior to you acquiring your first investment property. Now you do have investment properties. You've got a home base, and you mentioned a couple of other markets that you also like to, or other cities or areas you like to explore. What would be top of mind for you? What are some of your favorite places to go once outside of the Orlando area?
So one of the ones we always regard when we came down to Florida, to Orlando all the time is we always go down to Clearwater Beach, a beautiful area. It's one of the things we've spent. Again, Orlando was our hub, but we go spend a couple of days out in Clearwater. But
And where's Clearwater?
just it would be just north, within the Tampa area, but a little shy of Tampa on that
Mm-hmm.
side. When we were looking for investments, we looked that way. We also went down to the Fort Lauderdale area, specifically the place
Yes.
Pompano Beach, um, down that side of the coast. I looked in that area as well. Again, beautiful areas that we looked at,
Mm-hmm.
but then again, same thing. We thought what makes sense as an investment, but still have some rental income because it's going to sit there for it's going to be unrented and it's still a cost
Mm-hmm.
to incur on a monthly basis. So if you can get some additional income to it, Orlando was our first option for us. But again, we've traveled Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, down to the Keys, looking for
Mm-hmm.
a good spot for an investment. I think our next um, option or next location would be the Pompano Beach area
Mm-hmm.
for our investment property.
And why is that? Why do you like Pompano Beach?
The closest to the beach, it's a nicer area, I personally believe, than the Clearwater side. Um,
Yeah.
and my wife always says, she likes places that she feels like home, which is here. She can come out, she can walk around, and not have to be worried because you're in a different country. And that's one of the biggest things that I've looked. It's the same thing, we're looking for when I'm looking for clients. They want to know, is it a good area? Is it a bad area? It's the same philosophy I use down there. The area makes a big location makes a big benefit for renters, buyers.
Mm-hmm. So what makes it feel like home though? Because that's very subjective, right? Do you mean like home as in Toronto home or just your
No,
personal
home is
comfort level of walking around?
comfort, personal comfort. You can walk. It's simple. Nice malls, nice streets, tree-lined streets, a nice area. You can step out your front door and be like again if you're back home from a comfort level more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then with Clearwater, you said you prior to Pompano being top of the list for you. What is it about Clearwater? Like, what are there some insider tips that you can say if you're in the Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete area, you got to make sure to check this out or experience this?
I think it was definitely an experience because you got if I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, you got Hulk Hogan's restaurant not too far from right on the strip there. But personally,
Yeah.
from what we found, or what I found over the years going there, the Clearwater side, the beaches are beautiful, but the area itself has gotten a little on the rundown side from what I've
Yeah.
seen. That's the only reason. Um, that I said, we'll go back to the Pompano side for the next property. That's one of the biggest things. But every time we go down to Orlando, we're always down to Clearwater. No, that's our number one spot when we land.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy that.
Yeah, I know exactly the one that you're talking about. Right around the corner, there's Frenchie's
Yes.
Seafood. It's got the best fish sandwich.
Yep, that's the one around
It's got the big life-size action figure of Hulk Hogan right in the front.
Yeah, a couple of blocks over is another lobster place that we always go to after our day at the beach.
Which one is that?
I can't remember the name of it, but it's right same area on the would be the north end of that strip there, away from Hulk Hogan's place.
Mm-hmm. I find it's getting quite crowded now because there's just that one street, that one bridge that goes over to it.
Yeah,
one way in, one way out.
That's the one of the big things. It is more, and it's always busy, and that's one of the reasons we said, you know what, it's some people like busy. That's great, but I was thinking, long term, does everybody like busy? Does it always have to be busy every single time? Or do you want to? Some people come to relax. Some people like the busy lifestyle and all that fun stuff. But when they come on vacation, they also want to relax. They don't want the busyness of what the life they're leading for a couple of weeks or a week or so. They just want to sit back and enjoy the Florida weather.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of development there. I was just there actually over the holidays, Christmas, New Year holidays in Clearwater. We actually stayed there. And there's a huge resort. I forgot the name of it, but I'm sure if you Google it, there's a huge resort that's being built. And there's a lot of development all over. How does that play in your investment strategy with Florida? What's your outlook on Florida?
So that's one of the biggest things. We took the particular area we have this first investment in Kissimmee. There's a location called the Loop,
yes,
which is a massive power center with a whole bunch of developments coming down that way. And that's one of the reasons, the same advice I give clients up here. What's around you? What's the value you're going to get from purchasing here? Is there infrastructure? Is there the typical, is there a Walmart? Is there a Publix? Where the kids do, if you have young kids, where do they go? Is there a McDonald's? And that's one of the biggest things I looked at from a investment side, is what is around that area. And that's one of the things. There's tons of it. There's tons of developments coming along in the Orlando area, which is awesome to see that. I've always seen that every time we've gone down. All these beautiful. I think Story Lake is the huge development that's not too far from us in Kissimmee.
Yeah. It's funny. I know exactly what you're talking about. We actually, when we first came down, we used to live right near there, and just down the street from the Loop. Actually, that big retail center. A lot of farmland. Actually, what part of Toronto did you grow up in, Martin?
I grew up in Richmond Hill, and then
Richmond Hill.
Yeah, after I got married, I moved out to Burlington. And then from there, I moved out to Grimsby. Again, it's one of those. We moved this way because we didn't like the busyness. The kids were still young. We wanted to enjoy, not so busy with the Richmond Hills or the Burlington areas, and we kind of saw. So we've been in Grimsby pretty much, our entire married life. Plus, it's because I fly out of Buffalo Airport when I go down to Orlando. That's a bonus.
Yeah,
right there.
Please outline that. I'm familiar with that. Probably similar to what we do, but that's a cool little insider tip. Like, how do you often through the Buffalo airport? How do you get down to Florida?
So from door to door, we're probably about 50 minutes from our house to Buffalo Airport. Once you cross the border at Niagara Falls, you have Houston Bridge, you have Rainbow Bridge. Once you cross there, you're pretty much in the States.
Yeah.
When we're down there, we choose either Frontier Airlines, which is very low cost airline, or Spirit back in the day, or even JetBlue to get down. Parking, excellent. We either take it's called the parking spot, which is right across from the airport. And great, 5 minutes you dropped off your car, you're at the front, at your gate to get there.
Yeah.
It's a lot less hassle than Pearson in traveling wise.
Cost effectiveness. How is it? How do you compare taking Air Canada directly from Pearson versus driving to Buffalo and taking a regional airline?
It's probably half of the cost, if not more, in getting down. Even with the exchange rate, it's very economical. We're going down next week. The three of us it's under 300 US for three of us for 6 days.
Amazing. Isn't that ironic, right? You want to go to, say, I don't know if you want to go to Winnipeg, but I used to fly to Winnipeg for business a lot, or even Vancouver, and it's like double, triple the cost, even if you're going from Pearson down to Florida.
Yeah.
Or crossing the border, forget about it. Taking Buffalo, one of those regional carriers, down to Florida, it's actually a lot cheaper than even just traveling domestically within Canada.
Which is one of the things my wife has always said to me is, we can't travel Canada because it's so expensive. She'd love to go to, BC or Nova Scotia and explore the country we live in, but it's cost-wise, it makes no sense. It just makes it easier to, hop on a regional jet in Florida in a couple hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so with your plans for Florida, is in your personal, speaking to you as an investor now, are you still, because I've not abandoned Canada altogether in terms of investment properties. We did acquire one I think it was last year, or maybe the year prior now, because we're in the new year. But very few and far between in Canada, at least. What's your outlook in your strategy as an investor in building your portfolio? Is it going to be mainly in Florida, or you're still looking for deals in Canada as well, or do you have a philosophy going forward?
It's in Florida for the investment side. It just the rate of return is a lot more, I'm not gonna say quicker or simpler. It's a little better for the Florida side. Again, property values up here where we are. It makes no sense from a investment wise, and trying to get that that 20% return on flipping it or renovating it. It just doesn't. There's no value there, or no additional value that I see. The Florida side, where I see, I've done this so many times on the Canada side. It's just time to move over to the Florida side.
So why is that? Do you have any kind of explanation? As someone who's might be listening to this or watching this and saying, I'm a little bit dismayed because I'm here in Canada. I want to get started in real estate, or maybe get my next property. I'm not a huge real estate investor, but why is it that people are not necessarily looking to Canada for investment properties and starting to look down in Florida? Because ever since the 6 years ago that we relocated, I've been seeing a lot more people talking about Florida now. Do you have any idea as to what happened with you've been in real estate in Canada for 15 plus years. So what happened over that time, you think?
It is definitely the value of this property. I've seen, back, in 15 years ago, you can get a single detached house for $50,000-$60,000. Now that same property, you're looking at $700,000 or $800,000. Florida, when you look,
sorry, what area? $50,000-$60,000?
When I started back in Hamilton, renovating and flipping houses, you can get a decent single-story, 3-story house for $50,000 or $60,000. So that's what we were doing. We were buying them, we were renovating them, we were flipping them for. You were hoping you got $5,000-$10,000 profit off it,
right?
Split between your other investors and your the bank, of course.
Interesting.
So, and then when you look at the Florida side of things, for $600,000, you back it out. So say $450,000, $500,000 US, you get a phenomenal piece of property down in Florida. My wife and I, we've been blessed with finances up here. that allow us to do that down there. But you're looking at I always look at the finance side of things to make sure it makes sense. And even the value I'm getting on the Florida side from the investment, it makes more sense than spending that money up here and trying to get the same value out of it. I think that's the biggest thing is the value I see in properties or investment properties down there.
Value in terms of just the purchase price, or
both
something else?
When I looked at the purchase price, 15 years ago, the properties down there haven't grown, or the pricing hasn't gone up that much in the 15 years. If you look at the property we purchased, you looked at back, it was back in when it was built in 15 years ago, it was nowhere near. It hasn't grown that incremental to what we purchased at now. Is probably the biggest thing.
And I think it's actually poised for that growth, though.
Yep.
Right. Even though we haven't seen the huge. Well, Florida is a bit of a boom and bust kind of market. Anyways, it has been like that for decades.
Yeah.
Even prior to the financial crisis and all that. Even going back to like some of the history that I've seen on some of the plaques in the different areas where like Henry Flagler used to own like huge tracts of land. It was right near. He was like the business partner of J. Paul Getty and United Oil and all that sort of stuff. But Florida has always had that mystique or that attraction as a vacation place. And when people have extra money, they buy up vacation properties in Florida. And when they don't have extra money, then they sell it. So that's the boom and bust nature. But somehow the last 5-6 years has been different, especially with the pandemic, for a great reason. I guess you could say that it accelerated people's plans. People were stuck at home. They're like, where's my quality of life? I'm working from home. I can just as easily be down, instead of being in Toronto, locked down. Now that they've opened up the border a little bit in 2021, a lot of people were moving down to Florida and saying, I'll just work remotely from there in the same time zone. But now that we're pretty much fully open back to pre-pandemic travel, like in terms of non-restrictions, people are still staying and people are still moving. They're like, you know what? The pandemic has taught me one thing, is life is short.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Might as well go for it instead of waiting till someday, maybe when I'm 65 years old. If I get there, I don't want to wait that long anymore.
That's the exact same thing we did, prior to COVID. We always talked about it. We always, we ran numbers till we were blue in the face before we made that plunge. But COVID taught you, you're not going to wait till you're 65. What if 65 never comes? What do you do? It's not those things where you keep saying you're going to do it and you don't make the actual move. I tell my clients, same thing up here. You got to stop saying it. You got to do it. And I was in the same boat. I said, you know what? We got to stop saying it. We've crunched the numbers. We made sure it made financial sense. If we can't rent it out, if we can't sell it or flip it, we can rent it out. And it's carrying itself. And it's one of those things. It has to make sense from a number perspective, regardless of if it's investments in here, in Florida, in California. The numbers have to make sense because everybody wants to sleep at night. You lay your head down. You want to make sure you have some type of good night's sleep when you have investment properties.
So, what would you say to someone contemplating, like someone who's like, I feel like I'm a little bit behind the curve a bit. It seems like everybody is investing in real estate now, and I was humming and hawing about investing in Canadian real estate, and now I'm listening to these podcasts and seeing these articles and stuff saying it's not such a great place to buy investment property in Canada, arguably. But I know you and I are kind of like preaching to the choir in a sense about Florida. What would you say to somebody just getting started who may be scared to pull the trigger on Florida? How can they make an incremental step in that direction, if not jumping right in? I think you don't want to necessarily jump blindly.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you have to go and go in the area and feel comfortable with it. Florida, you can rent a place that you think, hey, I would invest in this location. You rent it, you look at the location, you look at the amenities that the property gives, so you have a good understanding of what it'll give you. It's easier to spend that $2,000 for that 1 week or a few days trip as opposed to a few $100,000 and not end of the day it's not what you wanted. It's
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure before you do it. Again, because, like you said, it's not something you can hop in your car and drive 50 minutes and be there. You have to understand what you're getting into and where it is. And location wise, same thing I preach up here. Location's everything in those properties.
So you recommend that if someone's interested in Florida, they take a trip down first?
I would say that. If you like, we knew the exact area we were looking for. We knew, again, the complex we have our townhouse and it came up for sale, and it's one of those things where you have to be ready, to do it. And we were ready. We our numbers. We ran our numbers years prior, and we knew what was involved, all that good stuff. So it was just one of the things you can't say you do it and then, oh well, I'll go think about it and crunch my numbers and then I'll see if it's going to work. You have to be ready in this market. What I'm seeing in Florida, same thing. You have to be ready to do it, even if you don't do it right away. In the back burner, you're ready to go as soon as you see that spectacular deal come across your plate. Yeah, you jump at it.
What does it mean by be ready? You mean having the money down in Florida already, or
no,
just mindset wise?
Just the mindset's the biggest thing. Funds is the second, but you've done you've got that extra, your down payment's ready to go. You're not scrambling last minute to get the down payment or sorting out the banking stuff, information. You've got that already. They're just waiting there for you when you come across that phenomenal deal you can't pass up.
Mm-hmm. Great advice. And so how can people get in touch with you if any part of your story has resonated?
Sure. You can go to our website. It's martinpersaud.com. My contact information is there. My chat's there. Facebook, of course. Plus all the properties I have listed up here in Canada that we're selling. So.
Excellent. So you heard it there, martinpersaud.com, or Google him and stalk him on social media. Martin, thank you very much for your insight, and I hope we can talk again very soon. Thanks for sharing your valuable information.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.